Are you ready to uncover your retirement solution? Learn more as Jeremy Keil and his guests guide you along the path of retirement and reveal the 5 steps you need to take to solve your retirement puzzle. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Retirement Revealed with Jeremy Keil. Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
Good, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. Can I sing to you?
You got to explain that a little bit more.
I heard it was your birthday, right?
It was
Can I
my
sing
birthday.
Happy birthday. I'm not going to sing happy birthday, but happy birthday, man. I'm so
Thank you,
excited
sir.
to be with you on the podcast, and I am going to boast just slightly for the listening audience. Jeremy was telling me before the podcast started that he and his family decided to do something a little bit different, and for his birthday did like an ice cream social fundraiser, which I just think is fantastic. And
Yeah.
we don't need to dive too much into it, but I wanted to say that because that kind of shows where your heart is, and I know that you raised some money for a very good cause.
It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And today you've got a special guest on the podcast. Who'd you bring on today?
Steve Kalscheur. He's a reverse mortgage specialist with American Advisors Group. I met Steve, and he really knows his stuff. And I thought, let's have an expert come on and talk about reverse mortgages. There's a lot of conceptions, and I'd say even misconceptions about what a reverse mortgage is. So why not let the expert give us some good ideas on how they work and what they might be used for. So Steve, welcome to the show.
Surely, thank you. I'm doing great, thank you. Yes, thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah. Any birthdays recently?
Absolutely. Just the birthday of my son, and that was always a really good time.
Awesome.
So love birthdays.
Good.
Absolutely.
Well, tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into the reverse mortgage business.
Well, I work out of Madison, Wisconsin here, and I've been working in the financial services industry for probably about 20 years. And I got into reverse mortgages about 12 years ago, and I've been doing exclusively government-insured reverse mortgages now for the last 12 years. So I'm from Wisconsin and went to school here, and love the people, love the culture, and just glad to be here.
Good.
So,
well, American Advisors Group, I think the acronym is AAG, but they're also known for something else. You might see their commercials and places with Tom Selleck. So tell us a little bit about AAG and how Tom Selleck's involved.
Yeah, well, American Advisors Group, AAG, is a national reverse mortgage specialist lender, and our national spokesperson is Mr. Tom Selleck. People often see him on national during different times of the day. He's usually on more during the middle of the day. There's CNBC, just various stations that happen to get a lot more retirement age people that tune in. So Tom Selleck he's been a really good spokesperson. TV advertising we get does produce they say around 50,000 calls a month.
Oh,
so we do get a lot of calls from Mr. Selleck. So I mean he's been quite good to us. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Well, he knows how to grow a mustache. He knows how to talk about reverse mortgages, I guess.
Yeah, he sure does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sure does. So
why don't you tell us a little bit about what a reverse mortgage is and how that might be different than a regular mortgage?
Well, a reverse mortgage is a retirement mortgage, basically. Retirement mortgage simply means that people can receive money from a mortgage rather than make payments. So it literally works in reverse, meaning that, instead of making a payment, you receive a payment.
It's not too bad to start getting some money.
Yeah. It can really help, the right person in the right situation. But I work exclusively with the government-insured reverse mortgage, which is a very safe, regulated product. People like the fact that it produces lots of different solutions and lots of different areas of retirement. So it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all type of a solution. So
a big thing is just making sure it's the right thing for people.
It
might
absolutely
be a great solution.
Yeah.
You were telling me earlier there are some specific questions that you go through, kind of a process to make sure, yes, you might be interested, but is this truly the best thing for you? Let's dive into it. What are some of those questions that help you figure that out?
Well, the first couple of questions I always ask people are dealing with how long someone wants to be in the home or can be in their home. For example, if they think that they're only going to be in their home for the next 3 to 4 years, generally this isn't the best option because there's fees involved. Reverse mortgages do have upfront fees, and we have to be conscientious of the fact that this is a long-term retirement strategy slash solution. It's not a quick fix, really, to problems that might exist. And then we always ask people about their children. If their children are involved in the decision making, we always try to include them if they are. And the third question generally is, do they want to leave a home paid off to their children in their will or trust? Is it part of their retirement plan? Their estate plan to leave a paid off home to their heirs. So we always want to know that up front too, and then get the kids involved appropriately as we go along the process.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the fees and maybe the kids don't actually get the mom's house at the end during estate planning. That's some of the downsides people talk about.
Well, they
might
can
be fees or that.
Yeah.
Thing.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who thinks that this is a sort of a quick fix, last resort, that they're just going to use it for a very short-term solution. Generally, this isn't the best thing. This is really more of a 20, 30-year time horizon for the average retiree, and what their time horizon looks like over the next 30 years.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's really where it has to be integrated.
Well, I'm glad you said that 20 to 30 years. A lot of people hit retirement, and they're thinking it's a shorter time frame, and in reality, it is longer. Or they might have thought it's maybe 10 or 15 years. They get there and realize, what do I do the rest of my life for income? I got 10 or 15 years left. What do I do? Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And so we're seeing that the time horizon for the average retiree, increasing extremely in an extreme way, so that 30 years, even 35 years, is no longer out of the question for the average retiree after they stop working.
Right.
So that's really what that's what we dig into is, that time frame.
Well, can you share with us a little bit about what are the upsides? We talked about some downsides, but what are the upsides? What do you get out of a reverse mortgage?
Yeah, obviously, with this type of solution, we want the upsides to be more significant than the downsides, if there are any. But I think the main items that we look at are tax-free money, meaning that people can get the money tax-free. They can get the money as a monthly payment, similar to an annuity. They can get it as an open line of credit, which simply sits there as a line of credit that can be used. Or they can get it as a lump sum, or they can mix and match all those. So, but the tax-free nature of the money is really an advantage. Another big advantage is that if people have a mortgage in the retirement, and we see more people do at this point, we can simply pay off and eliminate that person's mortgage as well as their payment if they have enough equity. Obviously, that can do a huge amount of good for someone's cash flow. It can also help with depletions of other securities. Like someone
your mortgage might be your biggest
right.
Mortgage might be your biggest payment every month, and if you eliminate that certainly helps out every month for sure.
Oh yeah. Some of the other things are obviously paying for basic things like medications, health care, long-term care. Potentially, we see more and more people that are really unprepared for the cost of long-term care. Most people we find do want to age in place. They do want to stay in the home that they raise their kids in if they can. And then a lot of times that involves retrofitting the house, paying for aging in place types of services, for example, walk-in tubs, things like that. And that's obviously another big one. And then obviously just the fact that it's a very flexible product. We find that most of their wealth is tied up in their home. So how do you monetize that wealth for a better retirement over that 20 to 30, 35 year time horizon? That's really where we see some real benefit. to some retirees.
Well, a couple things you mentioned there. We've seen that quite often. You get to maybe 80, 85 plus. Oftentimes it's just mom and dad's not around. Maybe he's passed on, and you're thinking through of, well, now she's got less income from Social Security. The prescription drug costs are still there. The property taxes are still there. A lot of people think the only solution is maybe just sell the house. Well, where does mom want to stay? The same house she's been for 40 years. So you're right on. That's so great. If you can find a way to help out mom with the monthly costs of prescription drugs or food or the property taxes, or maybe,
Sure.
like you said, the retrofitting. Oh, you hear it all the time. Well, I can't go up the stairs anymore, or can't keep up with the house anymore. They still want to be there. And if you can find a way to pay for that cost of care, you can stay in the home longer. I think you shared with me a stat.
Right.
It was you said 25% fewer doctor visits occur when the home care is in place. When you can have somebody come in to take care.
Yes.
You have less doctor visits. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the quality of life of people, seniors in their own homes as they age in place, is just so much higher than that's what the statistics are showing. If they can age in place and get care in the home and have, a mobility chair that takes them up and down the stairs, or, walk-in tubs, just many different things that can help aging in place make it a lot better and more comfortable.
Well, we have we see an acronym every so often related to reverse mortgages. I was hoping you can explain that for us, because part of our goal here is just make sure everyone's better educated about finances. But I've seen people talk about HECM reverse mortgages.
Right.
What is the HECM? What does that mean?
Home equity conversion mortgage is the government's or HUD's term for the reverse mortgage. So many people, when they hear the word reverse mortgage, don't really understand in any way what that is. But the government term is home equity conversion mortgage, and that's the only product, the only item that I work with is this particular product. Now there are proprietary reverse mortgages. They're generally not the same thing, but the HECM or home equity conversion mortgage is an option that's very regulated, that's very safe, that's been used by well over 1 million people. By and large, it's been very positive for people who use it. I can't say that there aren't situations where people may have misunderstood the product, or because people are required to maintain the contract, which means that they have to live in the home, they have to maintain the home, they have to pay the taxes and the insurance on the home, and that's true with any mortgage loan. So it's very important that anyone who gets into this understands that, because obviously if they don't pay the taxes or they don't pay the insurance or upkeep the home or live in it, they could face foreclosure, and no one wants that to happen.
Right.
So we counsel people very, very closely, so they understand the terms and they know what to do.
Well, it's just like any product, really. You think about it, you really want to understand it before you go ahead and purchase it, whatever that is. If it's a mutual fund or a variable annuity or a bank account, or in this case, the conversion mortgage or the reverse mortgage that's there. Sounds like it'd be a good question to ask is, this reverse mortgage I might be getting into, is it government or is it a private reverse mortgage? It seems like a great question for a consumer to ask.
Oh, yeah, because the government-insured reverse mortgage requires counseling, third-party counseling, before the person can even take one out. They can even before they can even take out an application. Yeah, and we encourage the children to be involved with that counseling session if they're part of the decision. So that is a third-party session that can take up to an hour or two, and it really checks to make sure that the client understands the product, understands what it is that they're getting. And then they get a certificate, and from there, I mean, the client should be very much empowered as to, what it is they're getting into at that point. And that's where we start to work with them and walk them through the process and make sure they're understanding every step of the way what's going on.
Yeah, so, that's awesome. Well, it sounds like you're educating the clients to begin with. It's great that part of the program is this education session. as well. And then it's even better, like you said, when the kids get involved. So that's awesome. We were talking a little earlier, and you were mentioning some different ways you can use these reverse mortgages. I wasn't even quite aware of them, and I'd love you to talk a little bit more of that, especially this untapped line of credit. How does that work? How does it grow? How does it differ versus what sometimes people call a HELOC, the home equity line of credit? That's maybe what they're used to when they're working. This is more of a retirement line of credit in a way.
Yes. Well, a retirement line of credit, probably the most powerful, and in terms of this home equity conversion option, the line of credit is probably the most powerful, flexible option that there is available. And there's nothing out there in terms of financial products that really does what this does, simply because the line of credit that's available has a growth feature. And right now it's around 4%. So if someone, for example, has a $100,000 line of credit home equity conversion option, they don't touch it, or they don't touch most of it, the actual amount will appreciate. So every year, they'll be looking at about a 4% appreciation on that line of credit. So after a year, 100,000 would be, up to about 104,000 in terms of the value of the line of credit. So it works similar to like a variable annuity or a deferred type of solution, where someone can literally defer the growth and at some point in the future convert that into an income stream, take it out as a lump sum, use it as a hedge against the downturn in the market, where they could simply turn on the line of credit in a downturn in the market.
Right there.
And then,
you were telling me about that, where.
Yeah. Well, if there is a downturn and someone is making withdrawals from their investments in the market, one way, obviously, to make those funds last longer, if we're looking at a 30 or 35-year retirement horizon, is what solution do we have to make that money last as long as possible? And one way to do that is to have a line of credit conversion in place, and then when the market does have a downturn dip, turn on the line of credit income and then replace it with the payments the client was taking out of the investments. And then when the market does recover, simply turn it off and pay it back.
Yeah. Thinking back to 2000, the market dropped 3 years in a row. So if you had to take money out of your investments 3 years in a row, you never want to sell at a loss. And there you are, 3 years in a row, selling at a loss. And that's an interesting feature where sometimes people call that the investment withdrawal risk, where when you take your investments out could hurt your retirement. So if you got this on the side, where if the market happens to be down, you can take the money out and you don't have to sell at a low point. And later on, when the market comes back up and you've got the profit there, you can maybe even pay down that line of credit if you'd prefer to. Now, you don't necessarily have to, but you could do it if you prefer to.
Exactly. Most people aren't aware that with this line of credit, they can make payments on it. So they can simply use it when needed for any purpose. And then once that actual target is obtained, then simply pay the money back. So you can make payments on the line of credit at any time. And then you can withdraw that money in the future at any time. So that's where it can be really, really beneficial to a more of a as a hedge tool, and more as for someone who is using it strategically as part of their overall retirement planning.
Right.
And then we see a lot more of that.
It's tax-free.
Yeah, and it's
tax-free. You take
tax-free,
money out of your IRAs and you pay taxes on it. You take the money out, it's tax-free. It doesn't affect your Social Security, doesn't affect your Medicare, doesn't affect your tax situation at all. That's just another great part of it to think through and see how it fits in there. One other thing, too, you mentioned, because this is always seems to be the misconception of, well, I do want my kids to get the house. I don't want to let the mortgage company get the house. Well, you're telling me the kids can always buy the house back. There's no requirement that the family loses the house.
Oh, right. Well, I would always hope that the client has their estate planning completed, meaning they've got wills and powers of attorney, and if they have a trust, they all that's in place. I would surely hope so. We want them to when they get into something like this. But yes, the client's heirs can purchase the home from the estate, but they just have to pay off obviously the balance. So one thing people often don't realize is that the most that people can owe on the home at the end of the term, when the person has passed away or moved out, is whatever the value of the home is, not the balance. And that's where the government insurance really makes this a safe product, because it is government insured. So, for example, if someone outlives their life expectancy, let's say they live for 30, 35 years after they take one of these out, and they happen to owe more than the value of the home, and the home hasn't kept up with the growth on what they've used, the most that the estate will owe is whatever the balance of the home, whatever the value of the home is, not the balance. Yeah. So it's a non-recourse
it's a good
loan.
Protection.
It's good protection. So other assets that might be earmarked, for the family in their estate plan, isn't affected by product because it's non-recourse. Whereas forward mortgages don't have that feature for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it another really important safe feature that can really protect the entire estate from any overages.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, appreciate you coming on, Steve. This is very, very educational. I've learned a good amount. I'm sure all of our listeners learned quite a bit.
Yes.
What questions might I've? Is there anything I should have asked you? What else should we have people know about the reverse mortgage?
I think that the most important thing that people do if they are looking for solutions, is to have an open mind when it comes to this option, rather than judging something before they're fully informed about it, but just taking the time to inform themselves, to get different opinions, to talk to their financial advisor, and to really just dig into it rather than just negate something without fully understanding it. I think that's the biggest thing. I really see people not taking the time to fully explore this. I think it hurts more people than it helps when that happens. They don't have that empowerment where they can really use this product to their benefit. And I mean potentially using it, with your people like yourself, so that it is integrated properly and it is used more as a tool to either hedge investments or build wealth in other areas. I mean, it's a complicated product that really should be properly, understood. That would be about the only thing. It's just that.
Okay. Well, you're right. A lot of people have these preconceived notions about reverse mortgages or a lot of things. We see people with preconceived ideas about how Social Security works, how pensions work, how IRAs work, how tax planning might work, and a lot of times they're completely off base because they just heard about it, or maybe it was that way sometime, but things change. The reverse mortgage program, I'm sure, has changed over time. Tax laws and all kinds of things change over time.
It's changed
and the
a
big
lot
reason I
over
wanted
the
to,
last 10 years. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, the big reason we wanted to bring you on is that we try to find people hidden income, we like to call it. Your Social Security decision, your pension decision can unlock tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, over your lifetime. You can make or lose it. Same thing with tax planning. You can save tens of thousands of dollars based on how you go about your tax planning. And this is another piece of it where the reverse mortgage, it can unlock this significant asset. Your house at some point might be your biggest asset, and it might be a way to either save you some money every month, or maybe it even creates a tax-free cash flow. So you're right on that. People should not just dismiss product or some situation because of what they've heard previously, because they just might not have heard the full story on it. So for you, Steve, how can people get a hold of you and hear the full story on reverse mortgages?
Well, I'm online, obviously, under American Advisors Group. They can always email me, or they can call my phone number, which is 608-235-2800. And I'm always available to do in-person visits with the financial planner and with the client's family, and really dig into it, so they're fully aware of everything. Just be very transparent with people. That's kind of one of my main objectives. So,
right. And we'll get your website in the show notes, but what's that website?
Oh, it's just aag.expert and then Steve Kalscheur.
Okay. And how do you spell your last name? I want to make sure people get that.
Kalscheur.
Awesome. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks, Steve.
All
Thanks for
right.
coming on. And what do you think, Eric? Learned a
Thank
thing or two
you.
there?
Oh, I'll tell you
Excellent.
what. I love this conversation. Steve, you don't know this, and shoot, I don't know if Jeremy, you and I have talked about this, but I had a very close family member that utilized a reverse mortgage. They took a big hit credit-wise and income-wise and got into some tax issues back in 08 and 09, and a few years later, they were just really struggling, and they were able to utilize a reverse mortgage to eliminate the IRS debt that they had and really put them back in. The biggest thing it did for them was bought them peace, because they had these things looming over their head, and they don't have that anymore. They don't have to be concerned about it anymore, and because it paid all those things off, they chose an option that worked for them. Like you said in the podcast, Chairman, like you've said, this is a very individualized situation, an individualized tool, just like all the tools that you introduce on this podcast, all the different options people have. But I think this is one that, like you said, they need to investigate, because if they're in a situation where this works well for them, wow, this could be really, really powerful. So, Steve, thank you so much for being on the show. And Jeremy, of course, thank you for bringing him.
My pleasure, gentlemen.
And, of course, the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Retirement Revealed podcast with Jeremy Keil. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jeremy comes out with a new podcast, it'll show it directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Keil Financial Partners, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Retirement Revealed podcast. Click on the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit retirement-revealed.com to learn more. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Keil Financial Partners. Keil Financial Partners does not provide legal, accounting, or tax advice. Consult your attorney or tax professional. Representatives have general knowledge of the Social Security tenets. For complete details on your situation, contact the Social Security Administration. Keil Financial Partners is a part of the Thrivent Advisor Network, a registered investment advisor. Content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.